Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Rainmaker's Roundup. I'm your host, Mark Iorio, and today with me I have Lisa Peskin. Lisa is the founder and CEO of Business Development University. Imagine that, Business Development University. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
How are you?
It's a pleasure to be here. I'm doing great.
It's great to have you. I love people that do business development.
Oh my gosh.
Because people call it sales and all kinds of things. Listen, we're out selling, right?
We are outselling, but I believe that nobody in this whole wide world should be selling their stuff. It's all about figuring out how you could help an individual or a company with your product or service.
Yeah.
Because so many people, that sales word is terrible.
They run away. It's like insurance. If you sell insurance, they're running the other way.
And exactly, and those are non-selling professionals, lawyers, accountants, architects, engineers, the last thing that they want to be referred to as a salesperson, yet they need to do the business
Absolutely.
development.
Every one of them, right?
Yes, exactly.
So you have an interesting background. To me, it's very interesting because I've always thought, Lisa, that there is a psychology to selling. And, you know, when you have a high EQ, a high emotional intelligence, and you're able to understand other people, you know, how they think. Not the whole, remember David Sandler, the whole sailfish thing. You go in to say, you know, the guy's got a sailfish on his wall. So that's all you talk about, even though you don't know anything about it. But you went, your degree is in psychology.
It is, my undergraduate
Your
degree.
undergraduate degree is in psychology. And I want to talk about the real psychology of business development and selling and what that means to you.
Well, when I think about the psychology of the sale, I think about a bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think about the different personality types that we work with and are selling to.
Right.
And understanding people, because not everybody's the same.
Right, exactly,
And
sure.
not only understanding the other individual, but understanding yourself, because that's going to give you a good indication of how to relate to people in an authentic way. There's so many programs out there that are manipulative and really try to put some techniques in there that aren't authentic. I believe in sales is all about really figuring out how you could help, relating to people, coming off in an honest way with integrity and in a believable way, and being able to relate to people, because people buy from people that they like.
Absolutely.
And that they like to work with.
Yep.
And the other aspect when I think about the psychology is sales success. And half of sales success is this and this. It's your attitude and it's your motivation.
Sure.
Are you willing to do what it takes to be successful, and are you committed to it?
Absolutely.
And the other thing with sales is we need to deal with a lot of rejection.
Yeah.
So people have to be able to psychologically deal with the fact that if they're the average performer, they're going to get 7 no's to every 3 yeses. The yeses are a whole bunch of fun, but the no's aren't.
They're
and
tough.
how do we stay resilient? And the other last aspect when I think about the psychology of sales is the fact that we never get to take a breather in sales. We're only as good as our very last week, our last month, and our last quarter. So we never get to go like this.
Yeah, right.
Like just take a breather.
Yeah.
So you have to be mentally strong if you want to have a sales career for the long term.
Yeah. That's a great segue into the next thought that I had about this, and that is you talked about professional selling, right? And you know, people think, and well, we've been through it for the last however many years, right? People don't look at sales as a high-end profession. It is a high-end profession. It's just like hitting a golf ball or a tennis ball or something like that. You need coaching, and you need training, and you need mentoring, and you need a system. So talk about that. Why do people not think they need that?
Well, for multiple reasons. First of all, as an owner of a company, oftentimes they hire a seasoned sales rep. And they figure, you know what, because they're seasoned, they know what they're doing, I don't necessarily need to spend the time in developing them. And back in my days running a sales force for ADP, when I was managing the managers, I told them they have a 1-line job description. All they need to do
is sell.
Well, as a sales leader, they need to maximize the performance and the potential of all of their direct reports.
Sure.
pretty easy. So if they're underperforming, how do we get them to hit their numbers? If they're average, how do we make them good? If they're good, how do we make them great? And if they're great, how do we turn them into a superstar?
Right.
So a lot of salespeople, the reason why they don't get the coaching, the training, the development that they want or need is because of the leadership within the company. They've already invested in the salesperson and they don't understand how important it is to invest in their development, ongoing development. Because again, it is all about maximizing performance and potential. So before we started today, we talked about, losing weight.
Right.
And you asked me how I was able to lose 17 pounds, and I said I hired a coach.
Right.
Well, it's just like going to
Same
the
thing.
gym,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Sure.
I might only want to do 3 sets of 15, but my trainer is going to get me do those couple extra reps. That really is the difference between being good and awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So you started BDU, Business Development University. Great name, by the
Thank
way.
you.
Awesome name. What are you doing that? Obviously you're doing some things that are different from every other sales coach out there, business development coach. But why did you start it, right? And what are you doing that's a little bit more unique than everybody else out there?
Thank you for asking me that.
Sure.
And I've had the company now for 15 years,
Yeah.
different iterations.
Yeah.
But it's been Business Development University since 2010.
Yeah.
Why did I start the company? Well, that relates back to my dad, who as a little girl gave me 3 pieces of advice. First one is follow your passion.
Yeah.
Second one is don't count on your husband for your money.
There you go.
And the third one is, if you can, be your own boss. Because in the 70s, he was with WCA Radio 27 years. They fired all the top management, hired people for a whole lot less money.
Right.
So I always knew in the back of my mind that I was going to have my own business.
Yeah.
And that I was going to find something I was truly passionate about. And when my father gave me that advice, the first thing I thought I wanted to do was be a doctor. I love helping people. My brother's a doctor. My brother-in-law's a doctor. So I went through all the pre-med classes and then finally realized I would have made a terrible doctor. And that's why I finished with a psychology degree,
Yeah.
because I know I like helping people. But the reason why I started this company is after 12 years at ADP, I didn't have any balance in my life. I don't even know my 21-year-old daughter's first words or first steps. I missed it
Wow.
all.
Wow.
I was trying to be a great mom, but also show the women at ADP you could not only be a professional, but be a mom too.
Yeah.
And I was trying to fight that glass ceiling over there.
Yeah.
But I always knew I was going to start my own company. And what I realized at ADP, my passion and my forte is really figuring out what I call the triage areas. What 3 areas that, if improved upon, are going to have the biggest impact on either an individual, team, or entire sales force performance.
Yep.
And I came up with a methodology that allowed me to do that. So when I started my own company in 2003, what I loved is I was impacting more people. And in 2005, I got to actually train in China. And I remember on my flight over to Japan before I went to Hong Kong, I met a guy from Procter & Gamble, and he said, if you could do anything in this world, what would you want to do? I had a 14-hour flight, a lot of time to come up with my answer. I landed. I said, I'm doing exactly what I want to be doing.
Oh, that's great.
And I don't know that many people in this world that could say they're doing exactly what they want to be doing.
Yeah.
Now, you asked, how does BDU differ from all the other sales, training, coaching, and consulting companies
Yeah.
out there? Well, one of the main differences is we don't sell training, coaching, or consulting. What we do is we figure out whether it's an individual working with, an entire team, or an entire organization. We go in and figure out what their triage areas are. Because once we figure out their triage areas, then we could figure out whether it's a training issue, a coaching issue, or whether it's an accountability issue. So we go in and take a very customized approach, understand the industry, understand the company, understand where they're trying to get to, and then figure out what's going to make the most sense to help them get there.
Yeah.
So in essence, what we sell is results.
Yeah. One of the things an old friend of mine told me a long time ago, Lisa, was, the mark of a real intellectual person, a person that really has the smarts to kind of piece things together, is taking what they've learned throughout their lives and applying it to a situation that's in front of them now, which is, to me, what you've prepared your whole life to get to this point, right? You majored in psychology, you've got doctors in your family, you apply the triage method to sales and business development, and that's pretty much prepared you for where you are today, right?
Absolutely, and as I said, I'm passionate, but the other thing that really differentiates us is all the members of the BDU team have not only been successful in sales themselves, but the key thing is they've been able to impact somebody else's success.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing, so many organizations, they take their best salesperson and they
make them
promote
the
them to sales
right.
manager, and then it's the Peter principle. They've got
Right.
promoted to a level of incompetency.
Yep.
Because there's a different set of skills carrying a bag and helping other people
True.
with their performance.
You're so right. We're going to have to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to ask you a question about some of the key mistakes that most salespeople, business development folks make out there. We're going to be right back after a message from our sponsors with Lisa Peskin.
For independent living for seniors age 62 and over, People Inc. offers safe, maintenance-free apartments across Western New York. The affordable rent is income-based. For more information, call People Inc. Senior Living at 817-9090.
In a world where bankers have lost all interest, where robots and fat cats rule our fortunes, one woman
Hi.
will stand up and strive to do the impossible. Be treated like a person. Friends and neighbors will join her quest. Ordinary people will band together against the forces of corporate greed. And together they will form Philadelphia Federal Credit Union, already in a neighborhood near you.
Assurance. It's a word, a touch, a look that sparks a feeling. Peace of mind that everything will be all right. These are the moments that inspire us to do more than you'd ever expect from a car insurance company at a price that's less than you'd expect. This is more than just insurance. This is Plymouth Rock Assurance. Visit us at PlymouthRock.com.
Hi, my name's Casey Price, host of a brand new show called Everyday Elder Care. My show will help you take the stress out of caring for your elderly loved one by educating you about options and solutions you may not even know exist. Tune in every Tuesday at noon on RVN TV. We'll see you there.
Imagine the finest hand-selected USDA prime steak you'll ever have. The freshest line-caught seafood, our Wine Spectator award-winning wine list, and soul-satisfying desserts. Bring that together with the perfect date, the winning business deal, a memorable family celebration. Welcome to Rod's Steak and Seafood Grill in nearby Morristown, New Jersey.
Welcome back to Rainmaker's Roundup. I am your host, Mark Iorio, and I am with Lisa Peskin. Lisa is the founder and CEO of Business Development University. Before the break, I was just going to ask you a question about some of the key mistakes that people make, in sales. And I also want to talk about this. You're writing a book.
I am
right?
writing a book,
Right.
yes.
I want to talk about that.
Okay, great.
But so what do you see as some of the key issues that people so a lot of obstacles, they beat themselves up, right? But what do you see as some of the key mistakes people make?
I love that question because the book I'm writing is really based upon all the mistakes I've made over time, and I wish somebody in 1986 when I started in sales sat me down and told me everything that I was going to learn over time, but I feel like I had to make all the mistakes
You do.
and figure
It's
it
like
all
a parent.
out.
It's like being a parent.
But here are a couple. When I go in and talk to an individual or a whole team, the first mistake I find is that salespeople are winging it. Without any rhyme or reason to what they do. They check their emails, they check their voicemails, they look at their schedule for the day, but there's no true rhyme or reason to what they do. And I've never played football a day in my life, might surprise you, but how many coaches, other than maybe back in the day Rich Kotite, would come to a game without a game plan?
Right.
But so many salespeople are winging it. They don't understand their numbers. They don't understand that sales revenue is comprised of 3 components: repeat business, upsell and cross-sell, and net new business.
Right.
They don't understand what they need to do in order to get the net new business. They don't have a multi-pronged approach. They don't have SMART goals, specific, measurable, aligned with the company, realistic and timed, both activity and result goals.
Yep.
And I'm a big believer in 30, 60, 90-day game plans. So typically when we start working with an organization, the first thing we do is triage them. But the second thing, if they don't have a game plan, we help them put together a game plan that's consistently rolling 30, 60, 90.
I like it.
But a blueprint for success. We have one company right now, we just developed a whole entire playbook that is basically, they have 20 odd salespeople and everybody's doing something completely different.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
there is a formula and a blueprint for success. And no matter whether you're an individual contributor or run an entire team organization, you've got to have a game plan and you've got to have a way to measure
Yep.
our success
Yep.
and understand how we're going to tweak it along the way. The second mistake I see in sales all the time is a lot of salespeople leave closing to the end. And I believe that closing really begins at that very first interaction you have with a prospect.
Right.
And what I find is salespeople are really good, typically, at doing one of two things. They're either really good at finding out how they could help a customer or a prospect with their product or service, doing a decent needs analysis, right?
Sure.
They're typically decent at presenting their solutions.
Yeah.
But oftentimes they start presenting before they found out what the customer or prospect
Really
needs.
wants or needs, yeah.
So they have the 2 steps of the sales process mixed up.
Interesting.
And they're not asking certain key questions from the very start. So I look at it as there's 2 types of needs. There's what the prospect needs, and then there's what we need to know.
Right.
What do we need to know? We need to know decision makers. We need to know if they're looking at any other alternatives.
Right.
We need to know the criteria that they're going to be using to make their decision. We got to know their timeline.
Right.
We got to know their budget.
Right.
We got to know whether this is a must-have or like to have. We have to be able to quantify the ROI and understand what the ROI is on how it's going to impact their organization.
Yep.
And oftentimes, salespeople leave that for the end process, where, in my opinion, it has to be done at the very start. Because oftentimes in the sales process, prospects will treat us as less than they are because we're trying to, quote, sell them something.
Of course, yeah.
Well, we want to keep it like this. As you mentioned before, sales is a profession. There's no reason why we shouldn't be on equal footing.
Right.
So if we ask those questions on the front end and really understand what success looks like to them, and then lead them through the process, we're going to have a much better opportunity to close it. I was working with one social media company. They were missing a piece of their sales process. So again, in the triage area, I look at close ratio. If the close ratio is south of 30% from proposals to sales, there's typically something going on with the process.
Interesting. So the big keys are really preparation. A lot of it is that if you could offer up tips to people who are in business development, Lisa, it is prepare yourself before you walk in there and don't wing it, right? But set these SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistically high, and time bound, because a lot of times it's almost amorphous or ethereal. Like, what am I supposed to do here? I'm building a friendship or a relationship with someone, but that doesn't help you close the deal. You've got to be able to close the deal like Mariano Rivera used to do if you're a baseball fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, I want somebody to know me as Lisa and not Lisa that's trying to sell them
Yeah,
something.
good
so
point.
I've got to be able to relate to them. I've got to understand who there is in their network.
Yep.
I've got to understand what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And if we do all that and follow certain steps, if I find out I'm up against a competitor, well, now I've got to maybe plant some seeds and traps throughout the process
Yep.
without ever talking badly about the competitor.
Yep.
But again, so many salespeople are afraid to ask, are you looking at any other alternatives?
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's certain ways we could ask these questions that are more comfortable by using prefacing phrases.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, if you don't mind me asking, just so I know.
Yeah.
These are great ways to soften questions, come off in a very consultative manner.
Yes.
And gather the key information you need to
Without
gather.
being too pushy. How do you get new clients? How does BDU get new clients?
So 65% of my business comes from client referrals and centers of influence referrals.
Okay.
And so I'm a big believer in making sure that you do a great job with your clients, because then you're going to get unsolicited referrals as well as asking for the referrals.
Right.
I was with a company yesterday and we realized a huge area of opportunity for them is they're great at unsolicited referrals, right? Not asking, but it's not in their comfort zone to necessarily ask.
Right.
And that one little thing could be a pure game changer.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about your book.
So I have a concept in life, and most people see my lemons and they assume it's making lemonade out of lemons.
I asked you that question earlier.
Because I am, and I have been called Little Miss Mary Sunshine,
Yeah.
because I could deal with a lot of adversity. My father, when he passed away 21 years ago, was a double amputee, 151 days in the hospital, 20 operations to
Wow.
remove a piece of his toe, the rest of his toe, the rest of his foot. He had his first heart attack when he was 39, went bankrupt,
Wow.
had triple bypass, had a stroke, and the man was so incredible, he never complained a moment in his life.
Wow.
And I figured if that guy didn't complain with everything that he dealt with,
I don't need to complain
then
about
I don't
it.
have too much to complain about.
Yeah.
But that's not what this concept's about. This concept, squeeze the lemon, is how do I get the most juice out of life? How do I get the most juice out of every conversation that I have?
Yeah.
How do I make the most of my day? And the words that correspond with this lemon are being purposeful in everything that we do.
Absolutely, yeah.
But the corresponding word to purposeful is results. Because I, as a salesperson, could do activity for activity's sake,
Yeah.
but it's what result we want to get out of that. So squeeze the lemon in our personal lives might be, I hit the microwave button for 5 minutes of cooking. What else can I do in that time?
Yeah.
Or I'm walking upstairs. What are all the things I could collect on the way? Squeeze the lemon in my world is, if I'm going to go into Center City for an appointment, who else can I see while I'm there for time and territory management?
Right.
If I'm driving an hour, which I did to get here this morning, can I schedule some calls so I can make the time worthwhile that I'm driving? Squeeze the lemon could be, let's say you're a client of mine and you say, oh my God, Lisa, you're fantastic. You made such an impact on my business. Squeeze the lemon could be, oh my gosh, that means the world to me. Could I ask you a huge favor? Could you put what you just said into a LinkedIn recommendation
Oh,
for
wow,
me?
yeah, sure.
Just one little drop of juice.
Yep.
So the book is really based upon what I talk about all the time, which is the top 10 secrets of success in sales. But it's a collection of stories from individuals that have been successful in sales. What their best sale was, what was the sale with the most adversity, how did they overcome it, or what do they believe is the secret of success. So it's going to be a book that you could put down and pick up and get all these little tidbits
Love
and
it.
aha moments.
Love it, love it, love it. So with all that, you've been in business, BDU started in 2010, right? So you've been around for 8 years, but you've been doing this for a long time.
15, yes.
15. Talk about a case study. Talk about someone who you really are proud of. You don't have to mention names if you don't want.
Well, one of the ones that I love talking about relates to the triage, and this will give you a really good feel for who we are and what we're all about.
Yeah.
I get a call on a Friday afternoon from a sales manager in St. Louis, and he said, we just bought a company. I've got a 9-year rep She doesn't know how to close business. I want to send her to your public training class.
Wow.
Well, my dad always said to me, you got to put your head on the pillow at the end of every day and do the right thing. So I said to the sales manager, what are you going to bring her all the way to Philadelphia? What if this is not a training issue? Let me just talk to her for an hour. Let me figure what's going on. After an hour, it was perfectly clear. 3 things. 1, all her next steps were loosey-goosey. So if you said you're making a decision next week, she goes, I'll call you next week, and then you never picked up the phone.
Wow.
Number 2, she had her steps of the sales process mixed up. So she would present her solutions and go into her whole demo before she found out what they care about. So hoping and praying that what she was saying mattered.
Right.
But the third was the most important. She was selling a database of physicians to hospitals for $18,000. And all the hospitals were saying, I'm not spending $18,000 on a database.
Right.
So I suggested that she ask 2 more questions. How many openings do you have for how many months? Because 1 opening is $100,000 of lost revenue.
Wow.
So if they found out they had 2 openings for 2 months, now you're putting your $18,000 solution in the context of a $400,000 problem.
Absolutely.
Becomes a no-brainer.
Nice.
Started working with her January of 2015. She finished #1 in the quarter for the first 2 quarters of 2015.
Wow.
Hit her annual goal that August and doubled her revenues
That's awesome.
the next year. And I said to her, Sarah, I'm so glad that you feel that I helped you. And she said, help me, Lisa. You changed my life.
Oh, that's awesome. Great story. So, great segue. Who inspires you, Lisa?
Well, I've spoken a lot about my father, and he is my daily inspiration because he always said, Lisa, you don't have control about what happens to you in life. You have control how you handle it.
Yeah.
And I think they tricked us as little kids that once upon a time live happily ever after.
Yeah.
I don't believe it's like that. Sometimes it's more like a whack-a-mole, and especially in sales. You pick your head up and somebody bops it down. So I think about that all the time. But the second person I haven't mentioned yet is my mom. And my mother, she lost her mom when she was 15 and dealt with all the adversity with my father.
Sure.
But she was a New Yorker, and she would say, doll, in life you could laugh or you could cry, but it's better to laugh.
Yeah.
And so between my father's inspiration of how to deal with adversity and my mother's using humor and really getting through the adversity and be motivated, those are the 2 people that, and my sister, of course, who has her fair share of adversity, but someone who can deal with all the adversity in life, stay positive, influence others in a positive way, be authentic, have integrity. That's the type of people
That's
that
awesome.
inspire
This has
me.
been an awesome 30 minutes.
Thank you so
Oh,
much.
you're welcome.
I
It
appreciate
was
it.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Tell everyone how to get in touch with you and BDU, please.
Well, there's a whole bunch of different ways, but the website is businessdevelopmentuniversity.com.
Yep.
You could follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Make sure you link into me,
Yep.
right? And then in my signature, I'll give you all the other ways to like us and follow us. And if there's any way that I could help any individual or company, please don't hesitate to get in touch. All I can tell you is I'll try to figure out with my team how to get you to the next level.
Awesome. Lisa, this was great.
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Had a great show. This was wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, we will see you next week on Rainmaker's Roundup. Have a wonderful week and be safe, everyone.
Bring your appetite and feed your passion.